Better thinking, faster decisions, bigger ROI. This is the Finding 12 Minutes podcast. The idea is simple. If you can find 12 minutes of efficiency in your day, you will gain an hour every week, and that changes how we work. Each episode is focused on practical ways to use AI, technology, and smarter strategies to help you move faster, think clearer, and get more done with less effort. So let's find your 12 minutes.
Most organizations do not suffer from a shortage of ideas. They tend to suffer from a shortage of ownership, shortage of decision-making, protected spaces for experimentation. Like, we don't have those things. Also, too, they suffer from the fact that some of these things happen in silos or isolation. So good ideas really die because someone proves that they're bad. They tend to die because no one creates a clear path from how do we get from the interest to evidence and then from evidence to action. So most good ideas don't die in a dramatic meeting. No executive stands up and says, that's a terrible idea, let's shut it down. Instead, good ideas usually die quietly. While they'll get praise in a meeting, they'll get added to a backlog. Someone may create a presentation. The committee agrees that we'll revisit this next quarter. Everyone tends to like the idea, but no one owns the next move. And eventually the idea loses momentum. The person who proposes it stops asking. Other priorities take over. 6 months later, someone at the leadership meeting asks, whatever happened to that idea? Well, nothing happened to it. And that's the problem. Today, I want to talk about why good ideas tend to die inside organizations and what leaders can do to give those ideas a fair chance to succeed, maybe even survive. So the goal is not to keep every idea alive. Organizations should kill ideas that are weak, poorly timed, unsupported by evidence, aren't really in the core where we expect the organization to grow. Our next logical step. But those ideas should die because of evidence, not neglect. So we want to focus on that. So again, organizations don't have an idea problem. And unfortunately, AI has been generating ideas easier than ever, right? So AI can make the ideation even faster and really kind of impacts the execution on the back end. So we could produce new product concepts. We can create new service models. We can get AI to help us improve processes. We can help it develop marketing campaigns. We can do all of these things in minutes. We can ask AI for 20 solutions before starting our first cup of coffee. So the concept of ideas being scarce is no longer the issue. Attention is scarce. Capacity is even more scarce. Organizational sponsorship is scarce. The ability to make a decision is scarce. That changes our innovation problem. The question is no longer, can we generate new ideas, or what is the next idea? More important question is how do we decide which ideas deserve attention, and how do we move those ideas forward without creating chaos or a graveyard of 1,000 ideas that never get any attention? So a good idea doesn't automatically become an organizational priority. It must compete against existing commitments. It must compete against revenue targets, client demands, budgets, schedules, utilization goals, operational risks, legal, across the board. An idea can be intelligent, it can be useful, it can be strategically relevant, yet still become organizationally homeless. And that's a big challenge. So as ideas begin as solutions instead of problems, what you find is that they get better traction. So the first reason good ideas die is often enter in the organization as a solution versus really clearly defining what the problem that it's solving up front, right? People come in and say, hey, listen, I need an AI assistant or an AI chatbot. Okay, what solution are you solving for? We should build a new dashboard. We need a customer portal. We should automate a process. And while all those might be reasonable ideas, but what exactly is the problem that we're solving? Who experiences the problem? How frequently does it happen? What does it currently cost us in time, money, quality, risk, customer frustration, customer satisfaction? Without a shared problem statement, every stakeholder evaluates the idea differently. Finance sees costs, leadership sees costs, IT sees integration and security issues. Operations may see disruptions. Leadership, again, going back to them outside of the cost, they may see risk. Employees see additional work. The person proposing the idea sees opportunity. Everyone may be responding rationally, but they're responding to different versions of the problem. When the problem is unclear, the conversation quickly becomes a debate about the solution. That is when the idea becomes a feature request instead of a strategic initiative. Before asking whether an idea is good, ask whether the problem we're solving is important enough to solve, right? And so the problem is that interest is, having interest in something is not ownership. And so the second reason ideas die in an organization is mainly confused on who has the ownership of the idea. I can come up with the idea. I'm collecting ideas from across the organization, but who owns that to the next phase, the next phase, the next phase? A senior leader may say, I support this. And while that sounds encouraging, that support is not necessarily the same as ownership. Sponsorship gives an idea permission to exist. An owner creates movement. Ownership doesn't mean someone is responsible for the next action, the next experiment, the next decision, even the next conversation. Without an owner, an idea becomes communal property. Everyone is interested, but no one's accountable. This is especially common when ideas cross departments, they go across the organization. A marketing assumes technology is leading it. Technology assumes operations owns it. Operations assumes that leadership's going to fund it. The idea falls into a space between organizational charts. Committees can provide input, and committees rarely provide momentum, though. The idea needs one clearly defined person who's responsible and has the capacity to move it forward to the next stage. Not necessarily complete the entire initiative, though. Just need to create the next piece of evidence. So when innovation starts colliding with incentives, that gets us to the third reason why ideas die within organizations. It wants innovation to be rewarding, and it wants something else. So leaders may ask employees to experiment, but employees evaluate it on utilization. So teams are encouraged to challenge existing processes, but managers are rewarding predictable delivery. People are, they're told to take intelligent risks, but sometimes the failures remain visible long after the lessons are learned. Organizations may find value in innovation rhetorically while simultaneously valuing operational consistency economically. That does not mean the employer's resistance to change. It just simply means that they're responding rationally to the system that's around them. So if exploring an idea creates more work, threatens performance, introduces personal risk without any visible reward, the safest choice is to continue to do work that's already exists. Organizations' immune system begins to predict the current business. If the immune system is not necessarily malicious, the current business pays the bills, controls approvals, governance often exists for legitimate reasons. The mistake is forcing a small experiment to satisfy the same requirements as a full enterprise implementation. So that this kind of gets us to this concept of discovery gets treated like delivery in a lot of ways. And it connects directly back to the difference between product delivery and product discovery. Discovery is about reducing uncertainty. Delivery is about executing with confidence. While discovery may ask questions like, is this a real problem? Will someone use the solution? Can we create it? Will it produce enough value? Whereas delivery may be asking questions like, well, how much does it cost? Who's going to build it? When will it launch? How will we support and govern it? Many organizations apply delivery questions too early, and they ask for detailed return on investment before the idea even gets tested. They request a full implementation plan before anyone's spoken with the customer. They demand certainty before allowing the team to learn about what they're trying to do. The idea becomes inflated into a major initiative and disappears because no one can answer the questions that are impossible to answer at this particular stage. Early ideas don't need the complete business case. They don't need it up front. What they need is they need small, inexpensive ways to reduce uncertainty. So when ideas are introduced that are too large, that creates our fourth reason. Our fourth reason ideas die is because they're introduced as transformations instead of experiments. A person will identify an inefficient workflow or immediately propose and then immediately propose a whole enterprise platform. Someone finds a useful AI application and then immediately recommends deploying it across the company. A team sees a product opportunity and immediately asks for a major budget. The larger the proposal becomes, the more organizational resistance it creates. More stakeholders become involved, more risk gets evaluated, more approvals are required, and the burden of proof increases. Instead of asking the organization to approve the entire idea, ask it to approve the smallest useful test, right? We always talk about MVPs or proof of concept, POCs. And then you want to ask yourself questions like, could one team try it? Could we test it with one client? Could we create a prototype? Could we interview 5 users? questions like that. And then the goal is the first step is not to improve the whole idea. It's to learn enough about the next decision that needs to be made. So when we get back to this, right, this whole idea of the 12-minute concept for during this review, here's a practical way to prevent ideas from disappearing within an organization. Go back to that 12-minute concept. Take 12 minutes, run an idea through a survival review, right? What does that mean? Well, during the first 3 minutes, define the problem. What specifically is happening? Who's experiencing it? What does this problem cost? Money, risk, quality, opportunity. And then during the next 3 minutes, connect the idea to a priority. What are the customer outcomes, the financial objectives, strategic goals, operational metrics that would improve if we actually did this? And if the idea cannot be connected to a current priority, acknowledge it. It may be interesting, but it's also unlikely to receive organizational attention now if it doesn't. During the next 3 minutes, define the smallest useful proof point that you can find. What experiment would reduce the most important uncertainty through all of this? The next is you want to prototype it. You want to test the workflow. You want to do customer interviews. You want to do manual simulation. You want to limit it to just a pilot. Don't ask, how do we launch this? You should be asking, what is the least expensive way to learn whether we should continue? During the final 3 minutes, create movement. Name an owner, identify a decision, set a date for that decision, and then end those 12 minutes. At the end of those 12 minutes, the idea should have one of 3 outcomes: advance it, test it, or stop it. Continue discussing it is not an outcome. Leaders must protect the process, but, not every idea gets all the attention. So, leaders can not protect every idea. They need to protect the process to which those ideas are evaluated, though. And that means creating clear distinction between discovery and delivery. It means allowing inexpensive experiments before demanding enterprise certainty. It means giving teams small amount of capacity to explore those opportunities. But it also means willing to say no. And a clear no is more respectful than 6 months of a maybe. When an idea is rejected, explain it. Perhaps it doesn't align with strategy. Perhaps the problem is not significant enough. Perhaps the timing is wrong. Perhaps the evidence doesn't support further investment. That information helps people improve the next idea. Silence teaches them to stop trying. Organizations should not measure innovation by the number of ideas. They should measure how quickly they convert those ideas into decisions and how much they learn from those experiments that they're running. So wrapping this up, good ideas do not survive on enthusiasm alone. They need a clearly defined problem. They need alignment within the organization's priorities. They need an owner, which is the most important part. They need the small experiment that tests those outcomes, test feasibility. And most importantly, they need the next decision. This week, we want to, I would encourage you, identify that one idea that's been floating around your organization. Maybe it's been discussed in several meetings. Maybe everyone agrees it has potential. Maybe no one knows what to do next. Give it the 12 minutes. Define the problem, connect it to a priority, design the smallest useful test, and assign an owner and a schedule. A schedule when's the next decision. The idea may move forward, it may change, or it may be stopped. Any of those outcomes is better than allowing it to slowly disappear within the organizational ambiguity. Good ideas do not need more applause. They need less friction, clearer ownership, and a next step.
And that's your 12 minutes. If you found value in this, share it with someone who needs to work smarter, not harder. And remember, small efficiencies compound. Find 12 minutes a day and the results take care of themselves. I'll see you in the next episode.